listening to the Bible 126 show.
This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row, all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
Hey, welcome to the Birthright Conference. You can get all this good digital content at birthrightconference.com. You can stream it for a year, right?
I think so.
And you can get the DVDs and all that stuff. But we're Blurry Creatures. We're just a podcast. This is our first live event, Luke.
The first time we've done a podcast like in the same room.
Yeah.
We've been in the same room before. This is not the first time we've hung out, but with Tim it is.
Yeah,
in person.
it is. The Tim Man. Here we go. So, we've had you on our show like 6 or 7 times.
I think so, yeah.
So we talk a lot about Genesis 6, aliens, Bigfoot, all that good stuff. So it's cool to be here in the flesh and hang out. Thanks for having us. And thanks for coming, everyone out there. So we can kick it off. Tim, what are your thoughts on Bigfoot? No, we gotta get into it. But yeah, so this whole conference is about transhumanism, and that gets pretty heavy into the weeds.
And aliens and UFOs.
Yeah. What about transhumanism, of all the topics, gets you the most excited, I guess, or the most interested?
Well, I think, and I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow, I think that that we need to understand that we are living in a transitional generation. Our generation is transitioning. We may be one of the last generations of humans on Earth because we're heading towards a post-human paradigm, a post-human apocalypse. And obviously there are very significant prophetic implications to that. And so post-humanism is the end of humanity. That's what transhumanism is. Transhumanism is it's a transition from where we are now, the human species, as still the offspring of Adam, transitioning into a post-human species, which is no longer the offspring of Adam. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get too much into that now, because tomorrow I'm going to be talking about that. And, there's the implications of losing our humanity, because we are all the descendants of Adam and Eve. And it's Adam and Eve who have dominion on the earth, Adam and his offspring. And so what happens when we're no longer human? What happens when we lose the trademarks that make us human? And I think that's the real danger of post-humanism.
When we talk about, you think that's a voluntary transaction, then it's not going to be something that we're going to be tricked into or accidentally hand over our DNA?
No, it's going to be very much a willful transaction. Mm-hmm. And that's why, my book I referenced Jacob and Esau. It's selling our birthright for a bowl of stew, with the promise of eternal life through technology.
Do you think we're being conditioned for that right now?
Very much so. Okay. Yeah, very much so.
How do you think practically this is going to happen, Tim? I was on online today, of all things, and there was a World Economic Forum video talking about how by 2072, their plan, or they believe the plan, is to have everybody sort of transitioned, which is not, we're talking about transhumanism, but they were talking about the terabytes in the brain and how essentially they can fuse the microchips and increase or double or triple the capacity and increase people's eyesight and memory recall and decision making. And it's crazy because we talk about this. We talk about this a number of times with reference to your book and our episodes, and you start to see it. You start to realize that this is not something that's far off. It's in fact they have plans to do it. Do you think that this is how they plan to pitch it? Is this the fountain of youth and the immortality thing that they're going to try to? That's how they'll play their hand on this.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things happening right now. A a lot of things, and that's why in this conference I wanted to cover transhumanism, aliens, and UFOs and Bible prophecy all in the same conference, because you kind of have to connect all these things together. All of these topics are unfolding right now. So we're being conditioned, as I said, we're being conditioned to willfully accept a post-human condition, to abandon the trademarks that make us human. But at the very same time that's happening, you have the unfolding disclosure of the alien presence, which I'll be talking about tomorrow. So there's a series of things happening right now that are unprecedented. You know, when you think about it, we grew up in the last generation without the internet. I always say this because it's really amazing when you think about it. We were the last, that's right. We were the last generation to grow up without cell phones, without the internet. Yeah. And so it would have been, we could not have imagined cell phones when we were kids and riding around on our bikes in the neighborhood. Now we all have cell phones, and most people can't imagine life without cell phones. Well, so we went from no cell phones, no internet, to internet, cell phones. That technology that we hold in our hands is going into our cerebral cortex. That's the next step. That technology is going to be interfaced into our brain. In the next generation, just like it was such a drastic transition for us to go from no internet, no cell phones, to suddenly this is the way our world is. For the next generation, they're not going to know what it's like to live without chips in their brains and upgrades, biological upgrades, biotech upgrades. Elon Musk is pouring billions of dollars into Neuralink, and that's all about interfacing with the internet through your brain. Mm-hmm. So the technology that we hold in our hands is going into our biology, and that's on several levels. I mean, even just in terms of interfacing with the internet, for sure, you will be surfing the internet with your brain, and not that far down the line. That technology already exists and is being developed right now, but nanotechnology is being developed right now as well. So we're going to have, in the future, medicine is going to consist more of nanobots patrolling your vascular highway, repairing your blood cells, killing cancer cells. None of this is science fiction anymore. As I said, we live in a transitional generation. We are witnessing the transition, pre-internet to the metaverse. A time when, we grew up, as I said, riding our bikes around the neighborhood, playing at the playground, to a future generations who will live out the majority of their lives in the metaverse. They will live out the majority of their lives with some kind of a device strapped to their head, living in this new real estate. And it is real estate. They're selling, and I don't know if everybody knows what the Metaverse is. The Metaverse is it's basically a new digital world that you interface with through the Oculus, through the new virtual reality software that's coming. Yeah. And they're actually selling right now real estate in the Metaverse. I think that
it's like buying an acre on Mars and the moon, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the house next to Snoop Dogg's house, I think, sold for $500 million in the Metaverse. Crazy. It's a digital world, and so it's hard to comprehend the shift that we are watching happen, and that's why this generation that's alive right now, it's very unique, because we can look behind us and we can see, as I said, no internet, no cell phones, and we can look in front of us and see what's coming, which is interfacing through the brain.
We've come a long way since Zach Morris' cell phone, right?
Backpack, car phone, put in your briefcase,
right? But one of the things we talk a lot about on our show, and there's like debate that happens a lot, is the physicality versus like a spiritual deception. So you're talking about technology, and we talk about UFOs and aliens. We're talking about technology, and for some reason, a lot of Christians have a hard time with the technology side of that. They think it's all just a spiritual deception. What are your thoughts on that? Because, we see it in our channels all the time. People are like, no, it's just all spiritual deception. But it's like, well, the tech's coming, and they're going to offer it to us. And obviously these things are flying around in advanced technology. And that seems to be like not much of a debate anymore. But yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
That's a really good question, because I think that the physical and the metaphysical, the spiritual and the physical, the spiritual and the material are two sides of the same coin. I think we have a misconception that there's a spirit world and then there's a physical world. But But I think that's a false dichotomy, and I think that human beings are a good representation of reality. We are physical beings. We are spiritual beings inhabiting physical bodies. Mm-hmm. They go together. It's not like one is a separate thing, and this is the physical me, and then there's a spiritual me. It's an intricate whole, and it's supposed to be that way. And so, what happens when you start interfacing? The brain is very, very powerful. I was talking with Joe Ellen yesterday. We were talking about how powerful the brain is. People who go insane, they lose the capacity to distinguish between objective reality and subjective reality. And this subjective reality is being created by the subconscious of their brains. So it's like they're living in a dream state while being awake. Mm. And people who have schizophrenia or insane will actually see things in the world that aren't there. So what I'm wondering is, what are we unleashing when we put technology in our brains? What are we unleashing when we're living in the virtual world, in the metaverse, and people are going to begin to live out their lives in the metaverse? And that's not, people will, in the future, there will be people who live the majority of their lives in the metaverse. So where's the dividing line between the metaverse and the metaphysical? So there's going to be a lot of crossover, I think. The more technological we become, to some degree, we're getting closer and closer to the metaphysical. That's quantum physics and stuff like that. And so, but you look at, you take quantum physics for an example, and we know that spooky action at a distance happens. And spooky action at a distance is what Einstein referred to as when you choose two particles, you can separate two particles, but they're intrinsically linked. You can put one on the moon and you can have one here on Earth. And if you make a change to the one on Earth, the particle on the moon instantly responds. So they're somehow connected. And so I think when we talk about the metaphysical, the spiritual, I think there's an intrinsic connection to the physical. It's two sides of the same coin. So I think we have a false dichotomy. Again, that there's a separate spirit world and there's a separate physical world. And in fact, the Bible demonstrates this because in 1 Colossians 15, it talks about Jesus, that all things were created through him and by him and for him. And in him, all things consist. And Paul makes a point to reference the things that are visible and the invisible. In him, all things consist. So the physical and the metaphysical, the spiritual and the physical are all consist in the Son of God. In other words, and I call him the singularity. He's the source of creation. He's the Big Bang. And so it's all two sides of the same coin.
Talk about the connection, because I think maybe there isn't a direct correlation, but you have to look at what's happening right now with the UFO disclosure, and then also at the same time this push for elevated humanity, right? This transhumanism. How are those two things in your mind correlated, or are they correlated? Or
they are, and it's very complicated.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves if you're going to do this tomorrow, but
it's a great question. It's one of the most important questions, and see, we're being forced to deal with a post-human paradigm on the horizon, right? So post-human, no longer human. Yeah. And at the same time that we have to contemplate a world in which the human species is practically gone, we have to then also contemplate other non-human entities showing up. Those two things are happening right now. So we're headed for a situation on planet Earth where the offspring of Adam are going to be going extinct, basically, and non-human entities are showing up. And these two things, they dovetail, and that's why I wrote a whole book about it, because it's very complex. Yeah. And there's no easy answer. There's no easy answer to how those things intersect, but they do. And it all has to do with our birthright. As we are all the sons and daughters of Adam and Eve. Mm-hmm. And we have been given dominion of the earth. And that's, again, I'll be talking about all that tomorrow, yeah. But that's why I call the book Birthright, because it is our birthright. Dominion of planet Earth is our birthright. And this has to do with the kingdom of heaven. And dominion in the kingdom of heaven, it's not a light thing. This is our charge. We were created for two reasons, the human species. Biblically speaking, from the biblical perspective, we were created for two fundamental reasons. To fellowship, for fellowship in the family of God, number one. And that's astounding.
Let's go.
That the human species was created to fellowship with God in the family of God. Adam, remember, was a son of God. And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing, we were created to govern the earth. We are the vice regents of planet Earth. And our dominion is enforced by the armies of the kingdom. By the king, he enforces our dominion as long as we remain human.
Yeah. And we've talked about that a lot on our show. And this isn't, one thing I've learned in doing this podcast is this isn't the first time humanity's been on the brink of going extinct.
No.
Yeah.
This is a repeat. To some degree, this is a repeat of the Genesis 6 affair that we're heading towards. Because humanity did lose dominion of the earth before. See, that's why it's so important to understand the Genesis 6 affair, because it was during in the days of Jared when the Watchers descended to the earth. See, the Watchers came and they made a pact, I believe, with the offspring of Cain, with the sons of Cain. We will give you the technology and the knowledge that you're seeking, and in exchange, you give us your daughter's hands in marriage. Because in the ancient world, women didn't marry whoever they wanted. The fathers determined who the daughters married. And it was an exchange. It was often an exchange, like a contract between two families. And so when the Watchers descended, they didn't just come down. They didn't just descend into the plains of Lebanon and start throwing women over their shoulders and I don't believe that that's what happened. I believe what happened was a transaction, a legal transaction. The Watchers made a legal transaction with the sons of Adam.
They had to, right? Because that's the rules.
That's the rules.
Yeah.
The Game of Thrones has rules. There's an order. There's an implicit order in the universe. It's not chaos. It's order. And so that transaction, they were doing something that was, for all intents and purposes, a legal transaction. Give us your wife's hands in marriage with all the ceremony that would go along with that. We will teach you what you have been. Remember, the book of Enoch says what they were already striving to learn. So the Watchers knew that the offspring of Adam, probably mainly the offspring of Cain, in the line of Cain, were striving to learn certain technological things, were desirous for certain knowledge, and the Watchers offered them that knowledge for the exchange of their daughter's hands in marriage. So it was a legal transaction. And then what happens? But it was a Faustian bargain. See, because I don't believe that the offspring of Adam had any idea what was about to emerge from the wombs of their daughters, which was a hybrid race of beings that would usurp them on earth. In other words, beings that were human enough to claim the birthright of Adam, but happened to also be giants, so that they could overthrow the human kings. I mean, it was really a genius plan by the Watchers, if you think about it, to try and.
You think they knew that was going to happen?
I think that was their intent. They wanted to be the gods of this world, and they wanted to install their hybrid sons as the kings and lords, and they would rule by proxy from behind the seat of their offspring. And this is, of course, confirmed in the mythologies of different cultures all over the world.
Yeah.
The offspring, the gods descend. Let's take, for example, the Greeks and the story of Atlantis. Poseidon, for his allotment among the gods, he had Atlantis, and he built up the island of Atlantis. He married a human woman. He gave birth to 5 sets of twins, so 10 twin sons, Atlas being the chief among them. And what did his 10 twin sons do? They also happened to be giants. What did they do? They ruled over Atlantis and the Atlantean Empire as kings. So that right there is an allegory of what happened in the antediluvian world with the Watchers.
Another topic we talk about a lot is, you say dominion, but authority is another word that I've been thinking about a lot on our show, is that transhumanism is giving over your authority, right? So when do you cross over?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. Where is the dividing line between human and non-human?
Yeah.
Transhumanism is a transition. That's why it's the word transition is built into that. Transhuman. We're transitioning out of the human condition. And so where's the line? I don't know. There are genetic trademarks that make us human for sure. CR, and I'm going to be again talking about this tomorrow, but there are our genome, the human genome is not larger and it's not more complex than other creatures. There are other creatures who have more chromosomes than human beings. However, because a genome is information. It's like digital information. So the information contained in the human genome creates a superior being with higher consciousness. So there's something encoded in the genome that gives rise to a human being, in the human genome, that gives rise to a thinking human being as opposed to an ape, right? So somewhere in that code, there is the seal. There's a seal in our genetic code, and it's the image of God. And so there are genetic trademarks that make us human as opposed to something else, because we share a lot of our DNA with other animals, right, with other creatures. So there's got to be a suite of genetic trademarks that are unique to the human species. And when you start to screw with those, you start to fundamentally alter your humanity.
Do you think that the people doing behind the scenes working on this technology, do you think they have knowledge of that? Or do you think it's sort of, they're just pushing the technology, like just further up the road? Because that's what we always do, just we build on the next, advancement. So do you think that, someone's behind the scene pulling the...
Yeah, who's behind the curtain?
Yeah.
Well, I think that ultimately, the ultimate answer would be, I believe that this person, this being that the Bible designates as the dragon, is behind what's happening now. Probably very...
So like whispering into Elon's ear?
It would be, it's an influence, an influencing force, influencing the general flow of where all of this is going. The dragon and his angels are influencing where all of this is going. Now, are there individuals who are in direct contact with the dragon? Of course, the dragon is that serpent of old, as John calls him in the book of Revelation, the devil. This being, by the way, and I always say this because it's true, he's never actually named in the scriptures. And people think, well, his name is Lucifer. It's not, that's a misnomer. But he's never actually named. He's like Voldemort from Harry Potter. It's he who should not be named. It's this nefarious character who isn't even given the honor of being named in the scriptures. But this character, he's the chief among the rebels. And those apostate sons of God are here with us and have been since the beginning. And of course, they are and always have been manipulating the affairs of the world. And so there's a general manipulation pushing mankind in this direction. Now, are there individuals who are in direct contact, let's say with fallen angels?
Yeah.
I don't know. Remember, there's rules of engagement in the kingdom. The devil can't go around and do whatever he wants. He is constrained. He is permitted.
It's like Job. It's like it's the whole scene in Job.
Precisely.
Right? Yeah.
He's permitted to do things. But much of what happens on the earth is our fault. We govern the earth. And even if you were to take the devil out of the scene, take out all of the demonic forces, men are still corrupt. Men's hearts are still corrupt. Men still reject God. Most men.
I think it's interesting that, like, when you talk about this, that it's the same thing. It's the tree of knowledge, right? It's like, you do anything but don't eat from this. And the allure of that knowledge is the same thing. It's the same deception the Watchers pulled, and it's the same thing we're seeing now with transhumanism is you can be like God.
Exactly.
Like yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's the tree.
And there's two ways that this is happening. It's that correspond, that mirror what happened in the pre-flood world. Yes, it's that allure. You can be like the gods. More specifically, that's going to become relevant very soon. You can be like the gods. The gods are real, and you can become like them. I call that apotheotheism. It's the religion of the future. Apotheosis, which is the deification of mankind, and theism, which is a belief in the gods. That's the religion of the future. It's not atheism. It's apotheotheism. The gods exist, and you can become like them. And so that's one thing happening. You're absolutely right. There's
It's
that
the same temptation, right? It's like
it's exactly the same temptation. It's the allure of knowledge and of technology. Now, and then there may even already be there may have already been a transaction that's taken place, and that would be a transaction between certain non-human factions and human beings. And some of you might be familiar with the Greada contract that supposedly took place between President Eisenhower and the gray aliens. People are familiar with the Greada contract from, sort of ufological lore, and it seems that the Greys are seeking permission for the abduction program to abduct people, and that would make sense if we are the governors, the vice regents of the earth, and I happen to think that the Greada contract. Did in fact happen, and as crazy as it sounds, I've spoken to some of the best ufologists out there. I'm friends with the people who I consider to be the best ufologists. Ufology is the study of UFOs, and for example, Richard Dolan is a good friend of mine, and Richard believes that the Greada contract absolutely happened, and these are very careful researchers. So we may be seeing right now both of those things happen, that allure for knowledge, that you shall be like the gods, but then at the same time, a legal transaction happening. And what are the Greys giving us in return for our permission to allow them to abduct our people? Technology.
So do you think, you call the sons of God the elder race, like our older siblings, so they could eat from the tree of good and evil, and we couldn't. Right?
Well, I think we need to. I personally think that the Garden of Eden story is largely allegorical.
Okay.
I don't believe Eve talked to a talking snake.
Yeah.
I believe that the Garden of Eden is representative of the family of God, of the Father's house, let's say. I do believe Eden was a real place, but I believe that the being that Eve interacted with in the garden looked very much like us, was a member of the elder race, and the elder race is, I refer to this angelic faction as the elder race because they pre-existed mankind. I'll be talking about that tomorrow at some point.
Sorry to get us ahead of schedule here.
And no, that's good because this is all intertwined.
You don't want it all now, Tim. All of it.
Yes.
So I believe that Eve was interacting with probably a very handsome young man who was offering her the knowledge of basically the knowledge of this older race that preexisted us, who we call them angels. And among that faction, there's of course the good guys and the bad guys. And the good guys and the bad guys are differentiated by one thing: loyalty, allegiance. They don't look different from each other. It's a matter of allegiance. The good guys are faithful to the King of Heaven, and the bad guys are not. The bad guys are apostate sons. The good ones are faithful sons.
And I ask all these questions and talk about this because specifically, you think human beings were. It's almost like the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings story. We weren't supposed to have this advanced technology, and they keep pushing that on us. But it's almost like we weren't supposed to have access to this knowledge and this technology. And obviously transhumanism is going to come in the form of advanced tech. And there's something there. There's a conversation there that I keep going back to and thinking about, is that we were almost in this organic state and supposed to stay
Just
there.
living in the Shire, right?
Right? Yeah. Just drinking ales and eating cheese.
And
now they're trying to put...
That sounds like the state I'm in right now.
Yeah, they're trying to put computer chips in our heads, so it's like this knowledge we weren't supposed to have.
The story of mankind is going full circle all the way back to the beginning. There's nothing new under the sun.
Right. Yep.
Everything that has been will be.
Yeah.
And so, but it's very much we're being beguiled. You see, as I said, we're being beguiled to sell our birthright for a bowl of stew, and it's only just begun. I mean, we're on the verge right now. We are on the verge right now of being able to, through gene therapy, which is gene therapy simply is you have the human genome, and mutated genes cause all kinds of problems, primarily cancer. And we're talking about that too tomorrow. So when you have a mutation in a gene, a deleterious mutation, a negative mutation in the gene, you get a genetic disorder. And so gene therapy is you take the genome, you take that sequence that's not mutated, and you take it and you splice it in. You correct the sequence that's mutated in somebody else's genome. That's human to human gene therapy. Okay, and without any other kind of bad intentions involved, without any other motives involved, except for to repair the human genome. In my eyes, there's nothing wrong with that, because you're taking information from the human genome and you're repairing a defective gene, right? A mutated gene. And we're going to be able, just doing that, we're going to be able to cure all kinds of diseases. We already know we can cure heart disease. We already know we can cure certain kinds of cancers this way, and the technology is increasing exponentially. But it's going to start with medical applications. So it's going to start the genetic engineering. It's going to start with medical applications. In other words, we're going to cure cancer, we're going to cure heart disease, because the human genome is decaying. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. We are experiencing genetic degeneration. And so it will start human to human gene therapy, sequences from the human genome to patch mutated genes, but it won't stop there. It's going to move into medical application to enhancement. And that's a big shift. Medical application is let's cure this, let's cure that. Enhancement is, you know what? We could probably run faster. We could probably hold our breath a lot longer under the water. We could probably, we can probably increase the capacity of the cerebral cortex if we screw with these genes. And then what happens is now, in order to do those things, you now have to go outside of the human genome. And you have to start grabbing sequences from other creatures and splicing them into the human genome. That's where you start to cross the line. And that's where this is going to go really, really fast. There is an emerging enhancement market coming. It is coming, and our kids are going to see it. And that enhancement market is going to be, there's going to be a genetic enhancement market. So there's going to be a suite of genetic products that you will be able to I don't know how it's going to be, if it's going to be pills or what it's going to be, or blood transfusions, who knows. But there will be genetic products, and then there's going to be biotech products. Like there's going to be nanotech products, and then there's going to be like the chips and things, the cybernetic technologies that are going. So when you combine all of this together, you're going to have a world inhabited by
Spider-Man.
Cyborg chimeric monsters. Exactly. That's exactly right.
You thought there was a lot of Spider-Man movies, but
yeah. Aren't they trying to do this already in the military-industrial complex? They're trying to build the super soldiers, and
definitely.
I mean, this goes back to Hitler. He was trying to build super soldiers. He had the technology, though, right?
Technology, but now it's back in 2007. I think the government, the military-industrial complex, DARPA, was experimenting with what's called HACs, human artificial chromosomes. And I put the reference in my book, and this is really amazing. Why? Because the problem with CRISPR-Cas9 technology, CRISPR-Cas9 uses, I believe it uses the capability of a bacteria or something, and you can go and you can make little snips in DNA. Mm-hmm. So you can make small changes in the DNA. That's CRISPR-Cas9. It's very accurate, but it's limited. So what DARPA was looking to do was, how do we change large segments of DNA? Because CRISPR-Cas9 is good to make little modifications. But how do we do a wholesale redesign of the genome, the human genome? Because DARPA isn't interested in upgrading, enhancing dogs. They're interested in enhancing soldiers. Right. And so what they came up with was, well, why don't we just create an artificial chromosome? And that way, this artificial chromosome becomes a platform, right, that we can then modify large segments of DNA at a time and affect major dramatic changes in human capabilities, right? That was like in 2007. You think they quit? You think they stopped doing that? Yeah. There's no way. The Chinese are already light years ahead of us because they don't have as many restrictions. And, well, who knows what's happening in the deep underground military bases.
Yeah. Well, we talk about that a lot on our show, that there's these chimerical creatures in the ancient history, right? So we already know it happened at one point.
That's right.
At least we have a history of it, and we talk about all the weird stuff that people see on our show all the time. The weird creatures, that some people think that's what Bigfoot is. He's like this blend of these two things. So, I mean, the technology, I guess it's interesting to think, like, it's coming in the form of test tubes now, whereas in ancient history, we always speculate, how did they do it? How did they create the satyrs and the fawns and all the weird creatures that were supposedly like two species put together? But I mean, that's what's coming, and they're going to do that to humanity. Why do you think it's coming in that, it's going to be sold to us as a good thing?
Well, it's going to be hard to convince people that it's a bad thing when they get to live 50 years longer.
Yeah.
When you can cure. It's going to be hard. This is not cut and dry stuff. If you've got a kid that, your 5-year-old boy has some kind of terminal cancer, and there's some kind of a gene therapy that will cure him, right? And in the beginning, those gene therapies, as I said, are going to be human to human. So I'm okay with repairing the human genome with human information. That's fine.
Like stem cell therapy?
Specifically, the gene therapy. So if you take a sequence from let's say it's a sequence from Adam's genome, and you repair a mutated gene, then you're just resetting that gene to what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
And that's where it's going to start, and that's where it is right now. But as I said, it's going to move from the medical to the enhancement industry, and that enhancement industry, it's right there. It's being developed right now, and designer babies, for example. We are going to see designer babies very soon. And as everybody knows, the COVID vaccine was a gene therapy. It's a gene therapy.
It's mRNA, yeah.
That's right. And so we're already being conditioned to screw around with the genome. Mm-hmm. And that was to get rid of a relatively mild pathogen, a relatively mild virus. Now, what about cancer? Over 600,000 Americans die every year of cancer. So you can see that the COVID vaccine is like, it opened the gate. It opened the gate. And now nothing will stop the deluge of genetic medical applications and products that are coming. They're coming. Mm-hmm. And then right behind that is the nanotech. The nanotech's coming. And then, behind that is Neuralink. And then the cybernetics. Well, Neuralink is kind of a cybernetic, but then all the other cybernetic technologies that are coming. And all of this is developing simultaneously. And that's why they call this the hybrid age, because all of these technologies are beginning to hybridize with one another. It's like a confluence of rivers. They're coming together.
We've talked to people on our show about some of this, including you, but do you think this is how they deliver the mark of the beast? Like, you're talking biblical prophecy at this place as well. Do you think this, and we've talked to people that say, and I can't remember if it was you or not, but definitely some of our other guests who were saying, oh, it's going to be a genetic mark. Like, they're going to utilize this technology to, from your standpoint, remove those things that make us human in order to usurp, but also there'll be this influx, there'll be some genetic marking that gets put into our DNA and that is the mark of the beast that we see in Revelation.
The technology, I think it's definitely going to have something to do with our DNA. Although I think we're going to be far down this path when something else happens, and that something else is the revealing of Apollo, the son of perdition, who I believe is the Antichrist. And I believe that the final element, the last piece of the puzzle for our transition into this post-human condition is going to be literally information from his genome into ours. Mm-hmm. It's going to be some kind of an upgrade from them, the hybrids. Because I believe, if you've read my book, I believe that the Antichrist is going to be literally the human hybrid son of the dragon. And I believe that the dragon and his angels are going to produce offspring, hybrid offspring, at the end of the age. And why do they do it at the end of the age? They're going to do it when they know their time is running out.
This is a Hail Mary.
Exactly, because they know when they cross that line, when that happens, the king is coming. The armies of heaven are on their way when that happens.
One thing we talk a lot about is sort of like, I don't know if it's kind of complex, but if the spread of the Holy Spirit kind of changed the world, right? And then there were more Christians, and it was harder for the darkness to sort of, rally the troops and take over. So do you think that could be part of it, that, as more and more people convert over, it's almost like giving the darkness a little more of a foothold?
Convert over to post-humanism?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's like, it's harder for them to pull off what they're trying to pull off if there's a lot of Christians running around.
Well, it's not even just Christians, it's just humans.
Yeah.
What happens, so if the offspring of Adam, we inherit his birthright. It's not, the birthright of Adam is not merited, it's inherited. The good, bad, and the ugly, doesn't matter. It's inherited through his genome.
Yeah.
So what happens when we lose the birthright of Adam?
Someone's going to take over.
All hell breaks loose on planet Earth. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be usurped, and that's why at the end of the age, and it's a verse that's always baffled me in Revelation when you have the scene in heaven where you have John is up in this vision, and he's in heaven, and he sees the Father sitting on the throne, and an angel declares, "Who is worthy?" And the Father has a scroll in his hand. And the angel declares, "Who is worthy to take the scroll and break the seals?" And nobody was found worthy in heaven or on earth. And John wept. And I always thought, why? Why is he crying over this scroll? Has anybody ever thought that? Why is he weeping over a scroll? Because that's the deed of the earth. That's why he's weeping over it. And nobody is worthy to take it because humanity is in a post-human condition on planet Earth. They've lost the birthright of Adam. But even if every human being becomes post-human and there are no more human beings left on the earth, there is still a Son of Man seated at the right hand of the Father. And it's just, it just hits me in the face every time I think about it because he is worthy to take the seal, to take the scroll and break its seals, because he is a son of Adam. And as a son of Adam, he has all authority on earth. As a son of God, he has all authority in heaven. As a son of Adam, he has all authority on earth.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. Think about it. There's no more human beings left on earth, but there's a man seated at the right hand of the Father. And he takes the scroll and he opens the seals, and the breaking of those seals is judgment on the empire of the beast. Each one, it's judgment. And what happens following that? He returns. Son of God returns to the earth. Jesus returns with the armies of heaven in train to occupy the throne of Adam and take back the earth for the offspring of Adam. That's what he's doing at the end of the age.
Take us to church. I know.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. It's complicated. And I think that the idea of having authority is something that I don't think a lot of people understand. It's almost like, we're all heirs to this kingdom and we're little kids.
That's right.
And we don't realize
it's exactly the way it is. That's exactly what it is.
One day we could rule this place, but right now someone's trying to take care of us.
We're supposed to be. See, we were commissioned to govern the earth. We're supposed to be governing the earth, the human race, according to the kingdom of heaven, according to the will of the King. That's what we were supposed to be doing here. But because we became corrupted through sin, that's why we have all these problems. Everybody wants to blame God for all the problems. All the atheists out there, like the late Christopher Hitchens and all of these, Richard Dawkins and all these guys, they want to blame God for all of the woes on planet Earth. Well, God is so loving, then why this and why that? It's not about God, it's about us. We're the problem. Yeah. We were given dominion of the earth. This is our bad governance that has caused all of this. And that gets rectified when the Son of God, the second Adam. See, the first Adam screwed this place up, but the second Adam is going to fix it. He's going to govern perfectly according to the will of the Father. He's going to do what the first Adam could not do.
Yeah, it's like you have to wake up and the responsibility is on you. And I think that's a difficult thing because we all look around. Who's gonna fix this mess? Who's gonna clean it up?
Yeah.
That's right.
It's us. It's personal responsibility, which is hard for a lot of people.
And that's what the Bible says: when the righteous, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people mourn.
Exactly. There's good kings and bad kings.
That's right. And so that's why the governments of the earth. Government is ordained by God. Government is ordained by God, according to Paul. And remember when Paul wrote those words, that government was the Roman Empire.
Right.
So and so government was ordained by God, but not bad government. We were supposed to rule according to the precepts of the kingdom of heaven, and we blew it, And so you get good men and you get bad men, and so when we get good men in power, things go well. When we get evil men in power, things don't go well.
They do not.
Yeah. Well,
that's a way to start the conference. Then.
Yeah, let's go. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, we still got 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay.
Oh, I was given the.
Yeah. Are we good? Still good?
Yeah. Hey, if you listen to our podcast at all, that Tim and Nate and I go. And my wife knows as well. It could be 3 hours, 4 hours. So I don't know how do we doing the short one. It seems really foreign.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the most interesting thing to me is just the conversation about the technology itself. That there are craft that have, they come out they come in shapes that look like something that we would make.
You're gonna open that can with 1 minute left?
No, not 1 minute left. But
you have to pass the baton.
Right?
Somebody else can pick that one up.
We'll be continuing this conversation in the lobby.
Right?
We will be. But we talked about that this week. Is what I'm saying. Is we talked about UFOs and stuff. So I'm excited for the conference. I'm excited for you getting all these topics, and we're pumped to be here. Thanks for just coming on our show all the time. And I think we could pitch the go to birthrightconference.com again if you want to get the video. Support Tim. You've been super kind to us. You've come on our show many times, and you've spent hours with us. And
you guys do a great job. Don't you do a great job?
We just feel like a couple of dummies asking questions.
I love the 80s theme. I love the 80s, the memes.
Oh, we're all kids.
I'm in it for the memes.
We're kids of the 80s.
Good, because that's all I know how to do. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tim. And
thank you.
Thanks for having us here.
Thanks for
it's been
coming.
a pleasure.
Yeah. It's awesome.
That's a wrap.
Folks, the Birthright Conference was an extraordinary event. We filmed over 6 hours of content, including presentations from myself, Joe Allen, Gary Haven, and Mancow Muller, covering a variety of topics, such as theological perspectives on angels and how they relate to extraterrestrials, transhumanism and the post-human paradigm, UFOs and alien abduction, and the dehumanization and depopulation agenda of the globalist elite. The conference is now available for purchase in DVD, digital download, and long-term rental formats. Go to birthrightconference.com to secure your copy today.